I want to run these balls using the quarter system, and for each alignment I'm going to call out one of 5 numbers, either 0, 1, 2, 3, or 4. And if I should encounter an alignment that would fall in between either of the 2 numbers, then I'll just refer to that as a tweener. I picked up that term from Tom Simpson 10 or 11 years ago. With cue ball in hand here, the amateur player might choose an alignment out on the table like this, but with cue ball in hand, remember, you can put the cue ball anywhere. So often a better choice is just to butt the cue ball right up to the object ball like so. It makes pocketing a cinch, but more importantly, it allows for real good touch and feel for cue ball control. 3. 1. 2. 0. 1. 0. I need to pop this ball off the rail a little bit, so I might add just a touch of inside to this shot. So I'm playing it as a 0. One. 'Why the numbers? Well, what you're really doing with the numbers is you're giving your left brain some information, sort of a trigger, so to speak, as to what kind of alignment you're going to make. A lot of pool is played with a right brain perspective, but your left brain really wants a piece of the action as well. So let's say when you learn this particular shot right here, you learn it as a full ball hit, as a center to center shot, as a 0 angle. That's how you learn the description of the shot, using the objectivity between these 2 balls. You got the center and you got the center. So what you do is you learn that and you store that information away, left brain. It's a 0. You don't want to be calling your shots, that's a full ball shot, that's a center to center relationship. You don't want that going in your mind. It needs to be boom, 0. It's something that has no interference with your play as far as being subconscious about it. So first thing I want to say is I'm going to align on these shots, and I see this as the optimal alignment, if at all possible, is to put your cue between your 2 eyes. I'll discuss why in just a moment, but that's how you're going to be able to retrieve optimal information from an alignment. So as I shoot this shot, it looks pretty straight in. I'm just going to line up center to center. As I get down, and I see there's a slight left cut to it, so I just place center to center. And perhaps there was a hair of an adjustment built into that shot for me at my level. But one of the nice things about the quarter system is that the pocket is generally, the opening is generally, you've got a couple of balls there to work with. So when you're working with putting one ball in the hole, particularly at this kind of a distance, you have perhaps 5 degrees of margin of error or forgiveness on each side of the pocket. So that's one of the advantages of a quarters system, is that it takes into account the whole pocket. Now, if I have a shot like this, obviously there's a little bit of a cut there, then that's still a 0 shot. I don't want to clutter my mind with there's a 16th of an adjustment, there's a 32nd of an adjustment. You don't want to get into that with the quarter system. You want to keep it simple. You can play this game with 5 lines if you're going to use the quarter system. In fact, any system that you're going to use is ultimately going to categorize your shots down into 5 families. This center-to-center relationship is one of those families. So if I have a shot like this, that's still a 0 shot. It's not enough. It's not enough to get to the 1, and it's really not enough to be a tweener. So just a 0 shot. This is a nice little shot that you can add to your arsenal if you hadn't already. Most good players, do this from time to time. This shot's lined up to roughly about this point, so I can line up on this shot center to center, and then just add a little bit of a left Q-tip position to this ball, and just twist it in. Same thing on this side. That's not quite straight in, so if I line up almost dead center, and then pivot a little bit to the right, then it has a nice entry into the pocket. A lot of times that shot can be real important when you're down here. You got a long, tough straight in, and it's a little bit off center. You might experiment around with just twisting that ball in. Now let's look at the next category of shots. That would be the 3/4 ball hit at described as a 14-degree angle of no relation to the 15 in center to edge. It's completely 2 different worlds. What happens in the 3/4 ball shot is that you aim the center of the ball to the 1st quarter, flanking this center right here. So how do we come up with the 1? It's the 1st quarter to the left. So the description of the shot is a 3/4 ball shot, 14-degree angle shot. So it's center to this line right here. So this is really sort of a cue pointing system. I point my cue through the center at this line, and I've got the whole pocket to work with. Even if that's not a 14-degree angle shot, the 14-degree angle shot is geometrically really supposed to be aimed up toward the center, or good solid center anyway. So if this is not a 14-degree angle, I'm still going to be able to make it into the pocket because of the forgiveness that I have on each side of the center. In this case, as much as 5 degrees. When you're doing the longer shots, your margin of error is going to diminish a little bit, perhaps down to 3 degrees or so. So for this shot, once again, I'm going to line up with my mid-face vision center, and now I made a little adjustment there to the inside of that line. Just as an experienced player, I saw it. I could have gone with that line and probably still made the ball very cleanly. For a left cut here, that's a 1. So now I'm going to line up to the 1st quarter on this side of center. So I actually did a line there pretty solidly with the system, and I didn't like the way it went into the pocket, but that's the idea of the quarter system, and you can still make a lot of these shots. This is a great system for bar tables. There's a lot of bar table play in the country today, and quarters is a really, really strong system for bar tables. Now let's go back and talk about visual alignment a little bit more. So let's say I've got that same shot, and why would it be that I prefer a mid-face vision center here? I can see the center to that line really well right there. But let's say that I'm left eye. have a dominant left eye line of sight, and I decide that, okay, that's the way I'm going to play, so I'm right down here like this. Now, I can see that line very well. I didn't hit it real clean, but I still got it in the hole. That's the idea of the quarter system. So what's the issue with lining up with the left eye? Well, here's what the issue is that when I line up with this left eye right here, I have a distortion. What's my distortion all about? My distortion is about the overlap side of the cue ball is not in true proportion to what's really happening with the shot. So if I were to line up with my mid-face vision center, now I have a real nice view of the overlap, which means that this left edge of the cue ball is going to be somewhere near this first quarter. It's not going to necessarily be on it at all, but it's going to be real close to it. In a way, you could say fractions, ghost ball, and even contact points are very close to CTE in the sense that when you're shooting shots right, the cutting edge of the cue ball is always right around those aim points on the object ball. With CTE, it's always, visually, it's always on the aim point for the object ball. So once again, when I line up for this shot right here, it's my mid-face vision center that sees the center to that line, but it's my left eye that is able to give me some extra information concerning the overlap. So what I'm saying is, if you can, then this is the alignment that you should strive for. Don't think that you're locked in to right here or to right here. I'm very strongly right eye dominant, and I worked with my alignments, and not only can I line up in the center of my face, I can line up very well with my left eye too. So you want to take the cut bias out of your game as much as you can. So this shot is a 1, is a cut to the right. So if I were to line up with my right eye on this shot, which I've done many times in the past, and I go down there with my right eye, I can see that line. I can see that line just fine. But I want to fight for every bit of information that I can get when I'm using my vision for playing this game. So it's a much stronger and friendlier alignment for retrieving information about the shot if you go mid-face. So when I go mid-face here, I'm adjusting right here. I go mid-face, but I can see the right side of this cue ball, and it's like if nothing else, it's a subconscious confirmation that the shot picture looks correct. So, something to consider. I know Stevie Moore was discussing this with Jose Brick at Derby City several years ago, and Jose said the strongest alignment is in the middle of the face. So it's something I've thought about for a lot of years, and I finally have come to understand why you want to use your mid-face vision center if at all possible. If you're very strongly left eye or right eye dominant, then that's fine. You're going to have to work with that one line of sight, and at times have possibly what might be a cut bias for one direction or the other. Okay, let's move on to the next group. I'm using centennial balls that are marked at the quarters. We call it the quarter system because if you were to take this ball and cut it in half and then slice it at each one of these and then slice it in half again, you're going to have 4 quarters. So this next quarter would be, you've got 0 and then 1 and then 2. So the 30-degree alignment or the half ball center to edge alignment is for your 30-degree shot. Now, that's of no relation to the 30-degree perception or the 30-degree angle in center to edge aiming. This is considered a very objective type shot in the fraction system because you can line up to center to edge very easy. That edge is very prominent to pick up visually. So this is a 2. Now, I made my adjustment there when I went down. So I didn't want to think, I don't want to think, okay, that's an 1/8 or that's another 1/16. That's not necessary. This is a 2 on this side. I'm just going to see where it goes. I'm just going to go straight centered edge. So I think it went a little bit left to center perhaps, but it went in a little bit funny. And once again, if I'm shooting this 2 right here, and I have a mid-face vision center, then what is it that I can pick up with my right eye? I can pick up the relationship of the right edge of the cue ball to the middle of the object ball. That's important information. So a lot of times the quarter system is just taught with one line. Well, that's narrowing your vision unnecessarily. You know, why not optimize your visual alignment at the table so that you can get not just information from the center of the cue ball, but also from the edge of the cue ball. So if I'm shooting this shot as a number 2, then my mid-face alignment here shows me a real nice visual half ball overlap. So if I'm lining up on that shot with my left eye over the line, then you can see I'm giving up on that information. And oftentimes we give up on it unnecessarily because we think that we have to line up using our dominant line of sight, the place where we can, you know, accurately perceive a straight line. I don't think you have any trouble if you're here to move to here, or if you're here to move to here. But if you're way over here, then that's a different story. So let's move on to the next. Let's move on to the next group of shots. This would be number 3. So we're moving over. We're starting off with 0. So we have 0, 1, 2, and then the next quarter is out in space. Each quarter is 9/16 of an inch in width, so we're essentially 9/16 of an inch out in space. So when I look at this shot, I mean, I've got some experience. I can see that a 2 won't make it. I know that a 4 is too thin, so I automatically know, boom, it's a 3. So a 3 is it's like a quarter ball overlap. A quarter of this ball is going to overlap a quarter of that ball. You can think this is like a 49-degree angle. So there's a lot of ways to describe this shot. It's a quarter ball overlap. It's a 49-degree angle. It's a it's a thin cut. But the way you want to designate this shot for your left brain is 3. So when you see 3, you can understand that if you're going to approach this shot from a center ball, then your tip's going to aim out here to this quarter in space. Well, it's not so easy to aim in space, but it can be done with training. It's not a real big issue. But Hal Houle contributed to the quarter system in a way that I haven't seen that type of addition to it over the years. Since you're aiming into space, Hal added a little touch that you should do what is called what he referred to as a head shift toward the cutting edge of the cue ball, so that you could forego a little bit of the center, maybe a lot of the center, in favor of the overlap part of the ball. So this is a 3. So when I drop down on this shot, my head goes to this side over here. Now I have a real good view of the overlap. So this is the same thing here. A 2 won't make that, so I know it's a 3. I know a 4 is too thin. So a lot of times when you're working with the quarters, you get familiar with these alignments, and then you just do a process of elimination real quick. It happens immediately. So you can do this on every single shot. It gets to be very easy to recognize which line you're going to use. So now on this shot versus the other one, when I drop down on this shot, my head's going to shift to the right. Now I've got my vision over here a little bit more, so that I can see that quarter to quarter overlap. The 45s are the most challenging shots visually of the whole group. The zero shots are easy, the ones are easy, the twos are easy, the fours are easy because you have the edge to edge. So that leaves the 45s as the toughest group of shots to see. So you might experiment around with the head shifting. It's not going to feel comfortable at all at first. I remember doing this years ago and teaching it, and it's certainly a different perspective on lining up for aiming in the quarter system that you might want to take a look at. The next shot is a number 4. Well, number 4 is I just use edge to edge on this. You could go to the 8th next, but it's best just, in my opinion, just to go straight to edge, and then you make your adjustment as you're down. So this is definitely a 4. It's like I don't even know for sure. It's a little further out in space than the 16th, than the 9/16 of an inch. Probably another half of that out in space. So the further you get away from that edge with aiming your tip out there, it's a little tougher to judge that. But if it's a pure edge-to-edge shot, then I guess it would be 9/16 twice. But it's often a little less than that because you're oftentimes your shots are going to be like an 1/8. So on this shot, as I go down, I'm working with an edge and edge overlap. So as I go down, my head goes right. See, my head is right. That allows me to take in the overlap information. So, I really like that. I would absolutely recommend that you develop that particular skill. Same way here, this is a 4. So when I go down, I know my head's going this way, so that I can take advantage of that edge-to-edge overlap. Sometimes it might be an 1/8, sometimes it might be a 1/16, sometimes it might actually be right at edge-to-edge. So that's a look at the shots. The quarter system does a good job, particularly on bar tables. And when I first did this lesson, I did try it yesterday on a 10-foot table, and the gaps really showed up. But on the larger table, the gap's really going to show up. On a bar table, it's not going to show up nearly as much. On the 9-foot table, it's some shots work and some don't. That's the nature of the quarter system. Like I say, when you're shooting a shot, like this is the 30 right here. When I'm down shooting this shot, this 30, if I shift my head over here, I can see the overlap on this shot, and this edge of the cue ball in the fractional system is always going to be very close to one of the aim points on the object ball. That is an aspect of centered edge aiming. So in the fractional system, you're using a set number of lines, and you're playing with a full pocket. The better you get with the quarter system, the more you can refine the system to where you're using a lot of lines, those in-between lines. You just don't want to get cluttered up in your thinking that, okay, this is a 1 and I have to adjust a 1/16 of an inch or whatever. You don't even want to be thinking I have to adjust an 1/8. You don't want 8 lines in your mind. You don't want to be thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and heaven forbid 16 when you're using the quarter system. This shot right here is a tweener. So I step up to this shot and I see that a 0 won't make it, and I see that a 1 is too thin. So I'm just going to go right between the 0 and the 1 for the tweener category. So that's as far as you need to go with this. Assign your shots as 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then anything in the middle, just call it a tweener. You're going to make your adjustments visually over time with your experience. You can absolutely bring this system to the table shot after shot after shot. Now what about spin? I didn't mean to get long-winded on this lesson. I've got a lot of things to do, but I said I would do this if I had a little bit of interest on AZ, and I did, so here I am. Let's take a look at spin. We'll take a little bit of a look at outside spin. Actually, I think everybody could probably pick up something from the information that I'm sharing today. You know, some little tidbit of something. But let's say that this is a 1 right here, and I'm going to put some outside spin on this. So that means I'm going to line up at the 1, center to the first quarter. Now, if I want to add just a little bit of spin to this, I can pivot my cue. Let's say a quarter tip. I didn't have to make any adjustments visually. Let's say I want to turn the cue ball a little bit more when I'm shooting this 1. Now what I'm going to show you here will apply for any of these lines that you're using for your foundational alignment. It would even work on the tweeners. But let's say we want to put a little bit more spin on this ball. Now you want to make an adjustment of 1/16 of an inch to the fuller side of the ball. So instead of lining up center cue ball to that line, I'm just going to back up 1/16 of an inch. Now I'm going to pivot my cue. So just that little tidbit of information right there is going to help a ton of you. I know it helped me. Where did it come from? It came from Ephraim Reyes. What else came from Ephraim Reyes concerning spin application for outside spin? Okay, we've got another 1 shot here. So let's review our three levels of spin here. If I just use a tiny bit of spin, I can aim center to this line right here, and it's free. I can back up 1/16 of an inch and then add a little bit more spin, and that's really a fairly good repeatable alignment for using spin. You just back up 1/16 of an inch and you're going to add more spin. In other words, the turning of the cue ball is starting to overtake that vertical spin. You're starting to get more side spin on it. For this next level of adjustment, you're going to really turn the cue ball. You're going to put more spin on it, so something else is going to have to happen. What you do is I go from this line right here, this first line, which is the quarter line. I'm going to back all the way up to the contact point of the object ball, which is more than 1/16 of an inch. So this is my next level of adjustment. So when I line up, I'm going to go right down with my mid-face vision center lined up right at what I perceive to be the contact point, and then I'm going to pivot pretty good here. So there's the contact point. There's a pretty good pivot. So that's really good information there. I thought, well, the quarter system has been around for 100 years here, and I'm going to be showing some people something that most people, have seen or they know. It's accessible on the internet. It's everywhere. So I want to make sure I at least try to put a few things in here that might be, useful for you, since you're going to spend the time to watch this, and I want to at least throw a couple of things out there. I'm not going to spend too much time with inside spin. I'm working with a new shaft, and it's one of the Regal shafts, and I'm just not going to, I don't want to override the information that you already have on your shaft, but there's not a lot of adjustment. What Efren Reyes says about inside spin is that for this number 2 shot, he says that if you're shooting a medium speed shot, your inside spin is free. Well, it is to a certain degree. That's a good concept, and I like it. It does work a lot, but it depends on your shaft a little bit too. So if you're going to use a lot of inside spin, that adjustment becomes a little bit tricky, because you're going to have to move your visual adjustment thicker to the object ball, and you're also going to have to move your bridge V inside. So if you're going to shoot hard and really put a lot of spin on it, then you've got a double adjustment to make, one with your V and one visually. So that's a 2. So I'm going to back in not quite a quarter, and then I'm going to move my bridge V in. So you can see why this alignment is a little bit tricky at times. So, but I'm not going to go into a lot of specifics about inside spin, but I'll come back to it at some point once I totally get familiar with this shaft. I've been working on my book and just haven't been doing a lot. So it's been fun today to revisit a system that I used to just love to teach and used to play with it myself. Of course, I was refined with it, very good with it. And Landon started off with this system and played with it quite a while before he moved into CTE. But anyway, I just, there's been some discussion about fractions lately. I have a little bit of knowledge about fractions, so I thought I can contribute to the topic in some way. So I hope you've enjoyed watching this. Thank you.